Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Monday, August 4th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 590 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we have another set of New York Jets player previews to discuss here on the podcast. You know the drill. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday throughout the entirety of training camp, we break down two players, one on the offensive side of the football and the other on the defensive side of the football. And today we're going to take a look at two brand new, I should say, New York Jets here. Tyler Johnson, free agent wide receiver acquisition, will break down on the offensive side of the football. And then on the defensive side of the football, we'll take a look at rookie safety Malachi Moore a little bit later on in today's podcast. So without further ado, let's begin. We'll start here as we always do on the offensive side of the football, and that today is breaking down what to expect from Tyler Johnson this year in the 2025 season. Tyler Johnson is entering year 6 at 26 years old, although he'll be 27 very soon. His birthday's on August 25th. So when the regular season rolls around, when the New York Jets take the field against the Pittsburgh Steelers to open up the 2025 campaign, Tyler Johnson will be entering his age 27 season. He's 6'1", 208 pounds, was a 2020 fifth-round pick, 161st overall out of Minnesota, selected by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Tyler Johnson, of course, earlier this offseason signed another one of those low-risk, high-reward contracts for the New York Jets. It's a one-year deal, $1.3 million. And when you look at Tyler Johnson so far in his career and you break down what he has done and you dissect what he has done since entering the league as a fifth-round pick in 2020, and you try and project to what he can do this year in 2025 in this offense that desperately needs someone to emerge, a couple guys hopefully, to emerge behind Garrett Wilson, Tyler Johnson is that perfect type of player that the New York Jets have been looking for this offseason, I should say, this past offseason, and that is those low-risk, high-reward signings. This is a guy that hasn't had many opportunities so far in his career, but in the minimal opportunities that he has had since 2020, his rookie year, this is a player who has shown some flashes. And potentially in the right system with the right coaching staff and the right offense and the right situation, you could potentially see him play a larger role here than he has previously with other teams and take a nice step in the right direction from a standpoint of production and also just overall growth, I should say, as a player with this Jets team here in 2025. And when you look at Tyler Johnson's career so far, it's been real interesting. There hasn't obviously been all smooth. There's been some bumps, and I think that shows when you look at the overall numbers and you look at the different stops. This was a guy, of course, was a fifth-round pick, started his career on a high note. His rookie year as a fifth-round pick, carved out a nice rotational role for himself, played 14 games with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his rookie season. And then in year number 2, took a nice step, played in all 17 games in 2021, 36 catches, 360 yards on 55 targets, still to this season, still to this day, that was his career high in receptions and yards in a single season. And it looked like he was heading in the right direction where he could potentially take another step in 2022 and really start to carve out a role in the future for that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. But that wasn't the case. He was a surprise cut coming out of training camp, spent half of 2022 with the Texans, the other half then back on the Buccaneers practice squad. 2023, then early that year, he signed a reserve futures contract with the Raiders, where he was then released on May 15th, then signed on to the Rams practice squad and spent all of 2023 on the Rams practice squad, except playing in one game the last week of the season of the 2023 season in week 18. And then you look at last year, finally started to play some games, 15 games, and you saw some flashes, you saw some positives, and now, of course, here he ends up with the Jets. But this was a guy after a nice rotational rookie year and a step in the right direction in year two, from 2022 to 2023, only ended up appearing in 3 games and played 65 snaps. And that was the big bump in the road, and now we're here. And when you look at his career stats, like I mentioned, we'll take a look at last year's first, then we'll take a look at the basic career numbers and then dive into some of the more advanced stuff and where you hope he can improve as a player and potentially make an impact here for this New York Jets team. Last year, 15 games played, 26 receptions on 41 targets, 291 yards, 11.2 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. Did not have a single drop. When he was called upon, when he was targeted, he made the plays. When you look at his career numbers, 47 games played, 76 receptions, 117 targets, 828 yards, 10.9 yards per reception, and 4 touchdowns. Those numbers obviously don't pop off the chart. He has not accumulated 1,000 yards in his career. Nothing eye-popping. And frankly, very little sample size, considering the roles he's been in and the opportunities and the limited amount of chances he's gotten. But when you look at the limited number of chances, there's certainly some positives, and there's room here for him to potentially develop and make an impact for this New York Jets team. And you look at the way this wide receiver room is structured, right? This is a team that's going to need somebody to emerge next to Garrett Wilson. Is that a Josh Reynolds? Is that an Arian Smith, who we've already spoke upon in one of these player previews? What do you get out of a guy like a Malachi Corley? Is he even on the roster? Obviously, you have Josh Reynolds as well. We mentioned Lazard. Tyler Johnson is an interesting one. All accounts, you expect Josh Reynolds to take over that wide receiver 2 role, but you look at Tyler Johnson, this is a guy that could potentially make a jump to maybe being this team's wide receiver 3, where he can get over Lazard and play a little bit of a bigger role than I think many expected him to when he was signed, and a bigger role than he has already played so far in his career. I mentioned making the most of his little opportunities. That's something that Tyler Johnson has done. And that's obviously one of the reasons why I think the New York Jets took a chance on him and said, hey, this is a low-risk, high-reward move. He's had very little opportunities, but in his little opportunities, he's taken advantage of them. This is a guy that when he's been thrown the football to, he catches it. And I know that's a simple concept, but it's a big deal because the Jets have had drop issues behind Garrett Wilson, cough, Alan Lazard being one of the main proponents of that. Tyler Johnson has not been in that situation. He's had 0 drops in 2021. And he's only had 4 career drops on 76 receptions. 117 total targets, just 4 career drops. That's just a 5% drop rate, which is lower than the league average of 6.4% in 2024. So he's been above average from that perspective in his career based on what we saw the league average was last year, a whole point lower in his career. So he's been consistent in that aspect. I also find this interesting as well. Last season in 2024, he caught 19 of 24 short targets, which is 0 to 9 air yards for 217 yards, including 3 of 4 contested targets in that area of the field. Now, that is a total of 9 yards per target on short targets. Again, 0 to 9 air yards, which ranks second best among wide receivers with at least 20 short targets, only behind Khalil Shakir, of course, from the Buffalo Bills. From those short yardage situations, Tyler Johnson has done a very good job of not only making plays just from a catching the football perspective and having a little bit of a yak ability, which I'll get to here in a second, but also a contested catch ability that has kind of flown under the radar. This is a player that in his career has caught 12 of 17 contested catches, which is a 70.4% contested catch rate. And all 12 of those contested catches came under 20 yards, including 8 of those 12 under 10 yards. So not a guy that's going to stretch the field a ton, and that's an area he needs to improve in. But the short, quick, one-on-one contested plays he's been able to make. He's also forced 14 missed tackles on 76 receptions in his career, which is about 0.184 per reception. The league average in 2024 was 0.126, so he was about 46% better in his career so far than what we saw receivers do last year. Last year alone, he forced 8 missed tackles on 26 receptions, which was 0.308 per reception. And he had a total of 117 yards after a catch, total over expected, which was 7th best at the position. And he was among some of the league's best names. Here were the other names in the top 10 last year for yak over expected: Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Zay Flowers, Deebo Samuel, Tyler Johnson there at number 7, Chris Godwin, Marvin Mims, Brian Thomas. A pretty good group of players to be in, considering this is a guy that has only been targeted 117 times in his career, was only targeted 41 times last year, and has only played in 47 games and has hauled in 76 receptions. For him to be amongst those players last season, pretty good group to be in. So the short yardage situations, the short to intermediate stuff, contested catches, all positives. Underrated yak ability as well. The one area you want to see some growth in, and this feels like really what could make or break how much of a real breakout you see from Tyler Johnson, how much of an increased production and role you see with him this season, is the route running hasn't been his best. He's also not the best run blocker, which is something that this regime prioritizes. He's only got a 47 Pro Football Focus run block grade in his career. But this is a guy that hasn't done enough from a stretching the field standpoint. He's only had 2 deep catches in his career, which is obviously 20 or more air yards. It's a very low number. He also only has 1.06 yards per route run in career. The NFL average is 1.49, so below average in that standpoint. And he only gets targeted once on every 7 routes. The NFL average last year was 1 every 5.5. Now, there is a bit of hope here from that standpoint. Last year, he had a career high in yards per route run and targets per every route run, where he was 1.46 yards per route run, and he had a 5.1, one target on every 5.1 yards, or one target on every 5.1 routes. So that dropped, of course, from his career of 1 target on every 7. Point being here, not a guy that's gotten open a ton. Not a guy that gets looked at a ton. Partially is the limited playing time. But even when he's out there, not a guy that get open enough. And doesn't stretch the field enough either. 2 things he's going to have to get better at, and 2 things that this coaching staff is hoping he can get better at in the potential emergence in this wide receiver room, which they desperately need. I think when you look at Tyler Johnson this year, you could really make a strong case this is a guy that could potentially take a jump as a wide receiver 3. improve the route running a bit, and become a better player from stretching the field perspective. And you look at Tyler Johnson this year, and he could be set up for one of his better seasons so far in his young career as a potential emergence in his offense. So that's Tyler Johnson on the offensive side of the football. Now let's take a look at the defensive side of the football here. And we're going to take a look at another new New York Jet. That is Malachi Moore, the rookie, was a 4th-round pick, 130th overall. The New York Jets traded up 15 spots from pick 145 to get Malachi Moore. They made the deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. Malachi Moore is 5'11", 196 pounds. Of course, out of Alabama. Enters his rookie season here at 23 years old, although he'll be 24 on September 13th. So shortly after week 1, he'll be 24 years old. So definitely a bit on the older end from a rookie perspective. And that's because he spent 5 seasons at Alabama. And Malachi Moore was a guy that I really liked, Jets fans really liked, and more importantly, feels like and was an Aaron Glenn draft pick. He is an Aaron Glenn guy. What Aaron Glenn wants in his players, what Aaron Glenn wants this team to be, Malachi Moore embodies a lot of that. And this was a player that his college resume, before we even get into just the on-the-field production, his college resume from an experience and team captain standpoint at a college like Alabama can't go unnoticed. This was a guy that started every game from 2023 to 2024, so the last 2 seasons. The last 2 years, this was a guy that was a team captain. He came on as a freshman at Alabama at 19 years old and finished his freshman year with 707 defensive snaps, which ranks 6th on the team. How hard that is to do at any school, but let alone Alabama, and letting it be under Nick Saban is a really big deal and something that can't go unnoticed. And I'm not saying that he's going to be the greatest safety of all time. No, but lots of experience and did it all at an SEC program, one of the elite programs in college football, under one of the all-time great coaches, came on as a freshman and made an immediate impact, and made an immediate impact playing a very big role. He then went on to be a full-time starter the next 4 years. He played a total of 3,121 defensive snaps in his collegiate career. So I wanted to throw that right out of the gate. Before you even get to the on-the-field stuff, just the experience and what he was able to do in 5 years at Alabama from that perspective is impressive, and impressive enough for the New York Jets to trade up for him. My favorite day 3 pick this year was Malachi Moore. Now, when you look at just some of the production basic numbers, 12 games played in 2024, 70 tackles, 2 picks, 8 passes defended, had a sack, 2 forced fumbles, 3 tackles for loss. When you look at his career, 64 games played. Of course, I mentioned those 3,121 defensive snaps, 212 total tackles, 24 passes defended, 7 interceptions, 2.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 16 tackles for loss. Interesting career from a standpoint of his positions. Very versatile. First 4 years at Alabama actually played mostly slot corner. It really wasn't until last year where he switched over to safety and played primarily safety the entire time, but still showed some different versatility last year. He began his career as a slot corner, and in last year, 44% of snaps came at deep safety, 33% of snaps came in the box, and 23% of snaps came in the slot. So even as he moved to safety, was able to play the box, can play deep, still showed the ability as well to play in the slot. And you saw him last year once he made the full-time move to safety, really jump up in a big way from a production standpoint and a success standpoint at the safety position. He struggled a bit as a corner, made the change to safety, and went out there and easily had his best year of his college career last year and did a very good job and was a good piece not only against the pass, but also against the run in coverage and stopping the run. And that's a big deal for a college prospect, right? A lot of times you look at these guys and they're either really good against the pass, struggle against the run, or really good against the run, struggle in coverage. Malachi Moore was a guy last season that was able to do both pretty well. You take a look at some of the numbers, and really the coverage stood out the most just because of how much he struggled at times as a corner in coverage, moved to safety, and he got a lot better. 423 coverage snaps last season. He was targeted 30 times, only 13 receptions allowed. That's a 43.3 completion percentage against, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He allowed a 51.0 passer rating. It's a career low. He had an 89.4 Pro Football Focus coverage grade, was a career high, and ranked second best among SEC safeties, only behind Andrew Makuba of Texas, of course, who was taken in the second round. He also produced a 75.5 PFF run defense grade, had just 5 missed tackles, which resulted in a career low 6.8 missed tackle rate. So again, I mentioned not only the coverage numbers you saw a big jump in from previous years, but you also saw the run defense. This is a guy, high IQ, versatility, like I mentioned, can play deep, can play the box, can play in the slot, can do multiple different things. The production in college is impressive. The jump you saw last year moving to safety is promising. And he just has that Aaron Glenn type of play style to him that Glenn wants to see. And that is a downhill thumper, smart player, not only good in coverage, but can deliver some big hits, has the ability to get down low and clog up running lanes. He does a lot of those things really, really well. Can play, is very competitive, very physical, has a little bit of that nastiness to him, even as a safety. And that's embodies everything a Glenn player looks like. And he's mentioned that a ton. And I think that's a big reason how much you saw how high they were on him was moving up 15 spots. Now, the big thing with Malachi Moore and AZ Thomas falls under the same boat, not the most athletic of the bunch, right? But he does make up for that with his high IQ, his short tackling, right? He only ran a 4.57 40-yard dash. 5'11", ranks 40th percentile among DB prospects this past year. His 196 pounds was 43rd percentile. His 29 and 5/8 arm length was 3rd percentile, and he only had a 5.78 RAS score, which is relative athletic score. The average is 7.5, and that was the lowest among the Jets draft class. But again, similar to AZ Thomas, right? AZ Thomas, the 40-yard dash brought his value down a bit. That's a bit with Malachi Moore too. Not the most athletic, brought his value down a bit, but from a production standpoint, an experience standpoint, short tackler, good in coverage, does those things really well. Still good value, in my opinion, in day number 3. And this is a player here, when you look at what he can do this season for this New York Jets team, there is a real opportunity for him to maybe become the starter right away. But if not, Malachi Moore is going to start games this year for the New York Jets and potentially very early on can become this team's starting strong safety and play a big role as a rookie. I don't think Malachi Moore is your typical day 3, 4th round pick where you're looking at a developmental year in year 1. No, there is a real opportunity that he starts over Tony Adams. If not right out of the gate, at some point during the season, can take over. And you hope to see the consistent play and coverage that you saw in Alabama, specifically last year with the full-time move to safety. The ability to be versatile, play deep, play the box, play in the slot, alongside Andre Sisco, of course, at free safety. That versatility provides a lot for a defense, and obviously the Jets value that. Coverage, run defense, all around well-rounded player. Real good opportunity, real good chance. He starts at some point, maybe early. Is this team starting safety coming out of training camp? And I don't talk about training camp much in these episodes, but he's a guy that's flashed so far. He also had a good spring. And Tony Adams is no lock for the roster, and I mentioned that in my Tony Adams player preview. Has he been solid? Yeah. But Malachi Moore with a good summer and a good preseason, can he go out there and win that job? Definitely. And if he does, you look for the consistent play to hopefully continue and him to play a big role for this team as a rookie, if that's the case, and a productive role as a rookie. So that's Malachi Moore. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on Tyler Johnson entering the 2025 season? Do you think he could take another step? Do you think he's a potential wide receiver number 3? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And what are your thoughts on Malachi Moore, the rookie safety out of Alabama? Will he start for this team right away? What are your expectations for the rookie here in 2025? And any other Jets takes, let me know what you think down below. Appreciate your support as always. Next player preview will be up on Wednesday. So as always, stay tuned for that. Until then, we'll have a ton more content coming your way. Appreciate your support. And until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.